Here is coming from Seymour Hersh, always doing great work, but he has been so banned and suppressed in the United States media, despite being one of the greatest reporters the U.S. has ever created, at least one of the greatest mainstream reporters. But now he is so suppressed and everything that he comes to you from Substack. But here's some of the key points from Seymour Hersh's article. He talked to several Israeli and former Israeli officials that he's become close with who are willing to tell him the truth. He said, over the past week, Israeli jets have conducted around-the-clock bombing of non-military, key words there, non-military targets in Gaza City. Apartment buildings, hospitals, and mosques were torn apart with no prior warning and no effort to minimize civilian casualties. And, of course, thousands of civilians have already been murdered in Palestine. Israel's obvious contempt for the well-being of the citizenry of Gaza amid the forced migration of more than 1 million starving human beings has captured the world's attention and led to increasing international condemnation. Here's what I've been told in my conversations in recent days with officials from Israel and elsewhere. One veteran of the IDF said the Israeli planners don't trust their infantry. This is interesting, although most of his article does not have to do with how strong the Israeli military is. There's at least one or two statements in here about how they don't actually want to have like a ground war. I mean, I don't know. It wouldn't be much of a war, I would think, because it's simply the overwhelming Israeli military power in terms of just obliterating everything. But anyway, this former IDF veteran is saying the Israeli planners don't trust their infantry. The insider said not their willingness to go to war, but what could be a disastrous lack of combat experience, meaning Israel would rather bomb the shit out of Gaza from the sky rather than get involved in anything on the ground. With the starved out civilian population forced to leave, the Israeli operational plan calls for, but of course they can't leave. So he mentions that. He's not avoiding that, but they're told to leave and they can't leave. With the starved out civilian population forced to leave, the Israeli operational plan calls for the Air Force to destroy the remaining structures in Gaza City and elsewhere in the north. Gaza City will be no more. Israel will then begin dropping the American-made, keywords there. Good, thank goodness our lovely government is involved in this mass murder. The American-made 5,000-pound bombs known as bunker busters, or JDAMs, in the flattened area where Hamas fighters are known to live. And just let's pause there for a minute and say, whenever we see Hamas fighters, sometimes, yes, it is actual, veteran fighters, but often it's an 18-year-old with a gun. This is not, I mean, 50% of all Palestinians in Gaza are under 18. So it is children. It is anyone that is willing to take up a gun to defend Palestine. I'm not going to defend the actions of the Hamas attack. I'm opposed to killing civilians in all regard, but I'm bringing you the side of this that is completely covered up by your mainstream media or largely covered up. So these bunker busters and improve. So, but here's something that horrified me. An improved version of the weapon, these bunker busters, known as GBU-43B, depicted by the media as the mother of all bombs. You might remember that phrase. Was dropped on a suspected ISIS command center in Afghanistan by the U.S. in April 2017. An early version of the weapon was sold to Israel in 2005. This thing is called the mother of all bombs because it is the largest non-nuclear bomb in existence. It can destroy all life and buildings for like a mile. For anyone anywhere nearby, it would seem like a nuclear bomb had gone off. And Trump, I often mention that Obama and Trump, both war criminals, as is Biden, and they drop thousands of bombs. Their Pentagon drops thousands of bombs a year. They don't give us the numbers anymore. Trump stopped the reporting, but In the first year of Trump in office, 40,000 bombs were dropped by our Pentagon. In the final year of Obama in office, 26,000 bombs were dropped by our Pentagon. Both of those are massive war crimes, killing God knows how many civilians. And that's both Obama and Trump. So if you sit there and you're still under the naive impression that these two parties are different or somehow one's the good guys, you'll be wrong. Anyway, this massive, nearly nuclear bomb very well may soon be dropped on areas of Gaza. An early version of the weapon was sold to Israel in 2005 under Bush, I guess that is. But I imagine much of this, here he continues. The improved laser-guided version was authorized for sale to Israel by the Obama administration a decade ago. Israel bought 1,000 much smaller GPS-guided bunker busters in 2021. So what do you know? Under Trump, Obama, and Biden, and Bush, we were selling massive bombs to Israel because that's what we do. The current, actually, much of the time, it's probably giving them massive bombs because we give them billions in aid. Aid means free weaponry and other things, but the current Israeli war planners are convinced, the insider told me, that the upgraded version of JDAMs with larger warheads would penetrate deep enough underground before detonating, 30 to 50 meters, with the blast and resulting sound wave killing all within a 1/2 mile, killing every human in a 1/2 mile. In one of the most densely populated areas of the world where people are not allowed to leave. Does that sound like something you want to endorse? Does that sound like something you want to get behind? Does that sound like something you should be rallying for? It's fucking horrific. So Israel is doing this thing where they're dropping leaflets telling people to leave. I have covered how it is impossible for people to leave Gaza. The only exit that was still allowing humans, as opposed to, materials, the only exit that was still allowing humans to leave into Egypt has now been closed, or mostly almost 100% closed. And so there's not actually any escape. And so they're dropping leaflets, and you might think, why would they do that? Why would Israel drop these leaflets saying leave if people can't leave a prison? Well, because they believe that then gives them cover for war crimes. Basically, if they drop leaflets and say leave and then obliterate thousands of innocent civilians, they can go, we told them to leave. We said it. There we go. Why did they not? And apparently, and you'll love this, where do you think they got this idea from? Maybe us. The concept, this Israeli insider added, dated back to the early years of America's Vietnam War, when President Kennedy, and for those who don't know, President Kennedy endorsed the Vietnam War until he didn't. So he had a change of heart basically as it was going, but he did very much endorse and support the Vietnam War at first. Dates back to the Vietnam War when President Kennedy's administration authorized the Strategic Hamlet Plan that called for the forced relocation of Vietnamese civilians in contested areas to hastily built housing in areas thought to be controlled by the South Vietnamese. Their deserted lands were then declared to be free fire zones, where all who stayed could be targeted by American troops. So you see, this is a war crime technique of forcing or telling everyone to leave. And then that enables, at least they believe it enables them, to just openly bomb and destroy anything they want. Anything they want 24/7. Anything that moves 24/7. That's what they believe, which, of course, is not just immoral, but it's illegal in international law, illegal in the Geneva Conventions. It's fucking horrific. It means that you fucking have no soul, all of those things. But they believe it entitles them to just flatten entire areas of the world. The systematic destruction of the remaining buildings in Gaza City will start within days. The Israeli insider said the bunker buster JDAMs could come next. Then in the planner's scenario, I was told the Israeli infantry will be assigned to mop up operations, searching out and killing those Hamas fighters and workers who managed to survive the JDAM attacks. And I will, when I get to the part about debunking the human shields in a bit, I will also go over how many of the people that Israel is claiming are Hamas are either not really connected to Hamas, tangentially, someone married to Hamas or whatever, but also Hamas. Yes, there are Hamas fighters that went into Israel and killed people. There's also just Hamas as the government in Gaza. So there are many government officials, as with the United States. So picture the U.S. system, right? We have the U.S. government and we have our military. Now, imagine it was all just called, American or whatever. If it was all just called something as one entity, then that would mean that you could kill the military people, but you could also kill any politicians, anybody working for the government. You know who else works for the government? All those fucking bureaucrats. I mean, in the U.S., but also in Gaza, all those bureaucrats that do things like assign aid, or the IRS or the EPA. Those are all government officials. So Israel is acting like all of those people. And I get that it's far simpler, meaning not as many people in Gaza, but still, all of those people are considered Hamas because Hamas is the government. So basically, Israel is saying, yeah, we could kill. Let's pretend there was an EPA in the in Gaza. There's not, because they're not even given clean water by Israel to begin with. But let's pretend there was an EPA or an IRS or whatever in Gaza. Israel is saying, yeah, you can murder all of them because they're Hamas. They're just saying anyone connected to the government is Hamas. And because of all the propaganda, very successful propaganda done by the West, we all hear the word Hamas, and we just picture a guy, frothing at the mouth with a gun. But Hamas is the government. It's far greater than just the Hamas fighters.